Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with me, Raisha Sehgal. There's lots lined up on the show. We'll get to the latest from what is happening in West Asia and the Ukraine-Russia war as well. But first, a quick check on the headlines. US announces deployment of additional military assets to West Asia, including ballistic missile defense destroyers and long-range B-52 bomber aircraft, serving as a warning to Iran as Israel and Tehran trade tit-for-tat strikes. Israeli army releases video showing airstrikes that it says killed senior Hamas official is Aldin Kassab in the southern Gaza town of Khan Yunis. Israel describes Kassab as one of the last surviving high-ranking members of Hamas. Zelensky calls for permission to strike North Korean soldiers deployed in Russia, says the international community is merely watching as the threat of the North Korean military aggression grows for Kyiv.
Anyone who wants to be president of the United States who uses that kind of violent rhetoric is clearly disqualified and unqualified to be president.
Kamala Harris slams remarks by Trump, who suggested the former lawmaker Liz Cheney should face combat with guns trained on her. Japan and the European Union announce a security and defense partnership as they seek to step up military ties, including joint exercises amid growing tensions with China, North Korea and Russia. US officials alert Mumbai police about the presence of gangster Lawrence Bishnoi's younger brother Anmol in their country. Mumbai police begins the process of extradition. The MotoGP race in Valencia is cancelled due to the floods in Spain. MotoGP organizers say they will announce a new venue and date for the season-ending race. Our top focus in World DNA, the United States of America has announced the deployment of additional military assets to West Asia, including ballistic missiles, defense destroyers, and long-range B-52 bomber aircraft. It comes as a warning to Iran as it trades tit-for-tat strikes with Israel. Pentagon spokesperson Major General Pat Ryder said that the U.S. will take every measure to defend American personnel or interest in the region should they be targeted by Iran or its proxies. The new forces, Ryder said, will begin to arrive soon. Now, the announcement comes as the fear of an Iranian retaliation looms over Israel for its October 26th attack on Iran. Besides US, Israel has also warned Iran against any retaliation. Force will be able to reach anywhere in Iran should the need arise, and that's exactly what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday. This as the country continues to pound Gaza. Gaza's government media office reported that 84 Palestinians, including more than 50 children, were killed in 2 Israeli attacks on residential buildings in northern Gaza. The Hamas militants continue to be on target. On Friday itself, the IDF announced the killing of Aldin Kassab, one of the last remaining members of Hamas's Politburo still in Gaza. The IDF later released a video which it said showed the airstrike in which Qassab was killed in Khan Yunis. In Lebanon, meanwhile, the health ministry said 52 people have been killed in Israeli strikes on Baalbek Ermel region, which lies in the country's east. The IDF had not issued evacuation orders before the attacks, and that's according to the Lebanon Health Ministry. On the other hand, Israel's military said it intercepted 7 drones launched from several fronts by the militant groups towards Israel overnight. Israel's air defenses shot down all the drones, and that's according to the IDF. Meanwhile, U.S. envoys have been working to secure ceasefires in Gaza and Lebanon, and that is ahead of the U.S. presidential poll set to take place on November 5th. Meanwhile, Israel's cabinet on Friday approved a 2025 national budget, which is a wartime financial package that far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich said supported the country's ongoing wars and encouraged economic growth. The budget, totaling about $162 billion, includes $2 billion package to support reserve soldiers. The world has its eyes on the upcoming U.S. presidential polls. But can a bigger event unfold before the polls in West Asia? Our correspondent Anas Malik sat down with a former Executive Council member of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, that is Dr. Kanini Mughadam, said that Iran might retaliate to Israel's October 26th strike, and that is before the U.S. elections. Listen in to this exclusive interview.
How do you look at the Israeli response to Iran, and will Iran respond in your opinion?
Welcome to Iran. Thank you very much for this interview. If you look at the news at this time, in the front of the resistance group, that the head of that is Iran, and include Lebanon, Hezbollah, Houthi in Yemen, Hashd Sha'bi in Iraq, and in Jolan the many commander for the from the Syria, and in Iran at this time in big war between Iran and Israel, and I think the position of the pinpoint. The Israel attacked Iran, and Iran answered to this attack. And I think the third reaction of the Iran may be very new before the election of the United States president election.
So you foresee an Iranian response before the U.S. election?
Yes, I think that this is a very good time, because I think the competition between the Kamala Harris and Trump is very near, and maybe some what do you call it, conflict between the Democrat Party and Republic Party, and this is a very good time for that reaction against Israel.
Well, from one war front to another, the United States has announced an additional $425 million in military aid to Ukraine. Well, the assistance aims to provide crucial military resources, including air defense interceptors, munitions for rocket systems, and armored vehicles, among other military supplies that the U.S. is giving to Ukraine at this point of time. The announcement follows Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's request for permission to target North Korean troops stationed in Russia. Zelensky criticized allies for their silence on this matter, warning that the deployment of North Korean forces in Russia, it indicates a coordinated effort to enhance Moscow's military capabilities. The warning comes as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin confirmed that around 10,000 North Korean soldiers have been deployed to Russia for training. The report indicates that over 80% of North Korean troops are deployed in Kursk region and are anticipated to engage in combat operations with Ukraine. Meanwhile, one person is reportedly dead and several others injured as a missile hit strike on a police station in Kharkiv. National Police Chief Yevgeny Vegeschev reported that Russia targeted the police station with 2 missiles, highlighting the ongoing danger faced by the civilians. On the other hand, Slovakia's Prime Minister has expressed outrage over criticism from the UK ambassador following an interview with a Russian media outlet. He labelled Slovakia as not Britain's colony and accused European nations of prolonging the war in Ukraine instead of seeking a peaceful resolution.
To, že na Slovensku reprezentujete väčší a silnejší štát, vás neoprávňuje na neakceptovateľné správanie. Slovensko nie je kolóniou Veľkej Británie. Boli to západní politici, ktorí naopak v apríli 2022, krátko po vypuknutí konfliktu, urobili všetko, aby sa nepodpísali reálne pripravené mierové dohody. A Zelenského mierový plán zapadol prachom, ako nerealistický. A namiesto jeho novej verzie ukrajinský prezident predstavuje plán víťazstva, v ktorom žiada rakety stredného a dlhého doletu, aby mohol zasahovať ciele na území Ruskej federácie.
Well, we are just 4 days away from the US presidential polls, and let's now tell you what is the Electoral College in US presidential polls. Well, it does sound like a complicated concept, but my colleague Dharamjot Kaur simplifies it for you. Take a look.
The US election process is anything but simple, but today we focus on the biggest factor that determines who wins the presidential race: electoral colleges. In each presidential election, you hear a candidate needs to reach the 270 majority mark to win the election. But what is this number and how is it obtained? Now, these reflect the number of electoral votes needed to cement a victory. You see, there are a total of 538 electoral votes divided among 50 states, and a candidate needs just over half to win. That brings you to the magic number of 270. But how are these electoral votes cast? Let's take a step back. When voters in America cast their ballot, they see the names of the presidential and vice presidential candidates on the ballot paper. But in reality, voters are actually casting their ballot for a group that represents their mandate. These people are called the electors. These voter representatives or electors then go and cast their official vote on the basis of how the state has voted. The Electoral College follows a winner-takes-all approach in 48 of the 50 states. This means that the candidate that wins the most number of votes in the state gets all of its electoral votes. It doesn't matter if the candidate won with 20 votes or 20,000. So how are the number of electoral votes per state determined? It's simple math. Each state has as many electors as it has representatives and senators in the Congress. There are 2 senators for each state, but the allocation of seats in the House of Representatives varies based on the population size. Let's take an example of California, the largest state in the United States. It has 2 senators and 52 lawmakers in the House of Representatives. This gives it a total of 54 electors. Another example, Georgia. The state has 2 senators and 14 representatives in the Congress. Hence, its total number of electors is 16. But just to clarify, the senators and House of Representatives are not the electors themselves. There are separate people for that job. The group of presidential electors is formed every 4 years during the election. They are chosen for the sole purpose of voting for the president and vice president. This year, November 5 is the main election day, and the electors will meet on December 17 to cast the final official vote. The gap between November 5 voting and the date electors cast the vote gives plenty of time for election officials to deal with all kinds of possible scenarios, be it assessing provisional ballots or counting ballots that arrive late. Now you might be wondering, can a candidate who got more votes nationally lose the election? The answer is yes, and it has happened before. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was contesting against Donald Trump. Overall, more voters cast their ballot for Clinton, but it was the Republican candidate Donald Trump who got more electoral votes based on the result of each state. And that is how he won the election back then. The electors are expected to represent the voters' choice in each state, and that is what usually happens. However, there have been some instances in the past where the representatives have voted for a third-party candidate altogether. It happened as recent as 2016, but the number of rogue voters weren't enough to flip the election result. Now, such electors are called the faithless ones. Dramatic, I know, but so are the elections. And a few rogue votes can potentially change the game. Interestingly, states have no regulation to bind the electors, but several states have criminal penalties to try and prevent the faithless electors from voting for someone else. Now, the concept of electoral votes has Americans divided over how fair and accurate it is. Many voters feel that a popular mandate nationally should determine who the winner is. But there is history behind how the concept of electoral colleges came to exist. You see, the founding fathers of the United States were divided over the presidential election process. Some favored people's popular vote, others wanted the Congress to vote and choose the president. So they reached a compromise between both, and that gave America the system of electoral college. Hope this helps simplify the presidential election process for the world's oldest democracy. Stay tuned to WION for more such explainers.
Well, the highly contested US presidential polls is now just days away. Let's now take a look at the stories that are shaping the race to the White House. As presidential contestants, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump focus on cost of living issues that concern voters, the slower job growth attributed to recent hurricanes and labor strikes, it has given a fresh opportunity to both contestants to throw punches on economic woes. The world's biggest economy added just 12,000 jobs last month as per a report by the Department of Labor. Job growth is expected to rebound in November, Biden said on Friday, highlighting a new contract proposal for striking Boeing workers. He also claimed that he was the most pro-union president in American history.
Look, just since I've been elected, I'm proud to be listed as the most pro-union president in American history. The middle class is growing. The middle class is growing. They're the best economy in the world right now because of you.
All right, the hiring and unemployment data is set to be scrutinized by the teams of both the presidential contestants. Now, following the elder Cheney's endorsement of Democratic contestant Kamala Harris, Donald Trump has termed Liz Cheney a war hawk during a conversation with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson in Arizona. He said, and I quote, "She might be less of a war hawk if guns were trained on her face." Liz Cheney, the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, is a former Congresswoman and a staunch critic of Trump. She responded to Trump labeling the ex-president vindictive and cruel. Responding to the questions, Trump dismissed her response as a very dumb individual and a radical war hawk who allegedly kills people.
Is it HHS maybe?
He knows it better than anybody.
It's for the community of Dearborn, so please let us welcome Mr. Donald J. Trump.
If you ever do that, she wouldn't be doing too well, I will tell you right now. But she's a war hawk. She wants to go kill people unnecessarily. And if she had to do it herself and she had to...
His views on vaccines, Mr. President?
We'll be talking about a lot of things, but he's going to have a big role in healthcare, a very big role.
Is it HHS maybe?
He knows it better than anybody.
With just 4 days left, Republican Vice President nominee J.D. Vance campaigned in Michigan, urging voters to make their voices heard, whether on election day or through early voting. We are going to win this race. That's what Vance said, emphasizing the importance of voter turnout. His visit comes after an upcoming stop by Vice President and the Democratic nominee Kamala Harris, who is scheduled to hold campaign events in Detroit and East Lansing on Sunday. Harris will also address at a black church in Detroit.
Here's how you vote the legal way. You take yourself to the polls. You get 9 of your friends and family to go along with you. So that's what we've got to do. So whether you're voting on election day or whether you're taking advantage of that early vote period through Sunday, we're going to win this race, but only if we get out there and make our voices heard. So let's go do it.
All right, France is grappling with a surge in drug-related violence, reaching what officials describe as a tipping point in the country. Following a shootout in Poitiers that left one teenager injured and several others hurt, and they are now calling for urgent actions. Police summoned gunshots were heard near a local restaurant where a brawl broke out among a large group of youths. Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau described the situation as unprecedented. Retailleau warned that the country is at a crossroad, suggesting that France could either mobilize fully against this rising threat or risk descending into a state similar to Mexico. He emphasized the need for a concerted national effort to combat the spread of drug violence. Amidst the mayhem, the police discovered a 15-year-old boy lying on the ground with a bullet wound on the head. 2 other teenagers aged 15 and 16 were also found with some serious injuries. The police recovered around 10 bullet casings at the scene, hinting at the severity of the situation. The drug-related incidents are not related to Poitiers alone. In Marseille, there have been 17 drug-related murders in 2024. Victims are often caught in the crossfire, including innocent bystanders. Last week, a 5-year-old child was injured during a drug-related incident in the country.